5:33. We're starting a little late, but I'll call our regular council meeting to order. And could we have a roll call, please?
Gregor.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Godey.
Yes.
Hanson.
Here.
McLeod.
Here.
All right, and just for the public who may be watching, Councilor McLeod is participating remotely via Zoom, I think.
Teams, but yes.
Oh, Teams,
Yep.
by Teams. And because of that, when we have votes on issues, as opposed to just calling for a voice vote, we'll be doing roll call votes. So if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, we have the challenge of having a public hearing after having convened the regular meeting. I guess look for some feedback from the council, and my suggestion would be perhaps we move into the public hearing process by recessing our meeting and giving priority to that, since that public hearing was announced to start at 5:30. We couldn't have started before, but we are not violating any laws starting later. So is there any objection to changing the order of the agenda to go into the public hearing process? From any councilors? I'm not seeing any. All right. So with that in mind, let's see. I'm supposed to have a gavel for these things. I'll recess. I'll recess this meeting, and we will proceed to go into our public hearing. And as far as I know, procedurally, I simply declare that the public hearing is open at this point in time. All right. I think we have some materials that are being passed out.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the
Oh,
council.
each one of us get one.
Yep.
A memo and a copy of the presentation.
Okay.
All right, so, excuse me, there any, I don't anticipate, unless Mr. Segler is going to be commenting on this, that we have a large public presence in regard to this, but this time the normal order of business would be we'd have a staff presentation, and in this case, I assume, Ehlers, you could
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the
proceed
council.
with the sort of background
Yeah.
and reasons for the hearing itself.
So for the council's benefit, I've just passed around two things. There is a memo that just has some various attachments, and then there's also a presentation that I'll just walk through here in a few minutes. Much like the presentation on the franchise fee, the memo has attached to it more detail than what is included in the presentation itself. But, Mr. Mayor, as you mentioned this evening for the public hearing is to consider the creation of an economic development authority. And if we want to use the appropriate title, in and for the city of Aurora. So keep that in mind. Why are we here tonight? Really just to review the need of the Economic Development Authority. How did we get here? We'll talk about the difference between an EDA, an Economic Development Authority, and an HRA, a Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So there'll be a little discussion on that. And then we'll discuss kind of the creation process. We have opened the public hearing, so after the presentation, if it be so in order, the council then can accept any public comment. And then I'll just kind of close with talking about some of the next steps that the city, and if it happens, the newly formed EDA would have to take in order to conduct business. So moving on to the next slide, kind of how did we get here? So you may remember on December 7th, 2007, something of a momentous day for the city and the yet-to-be-formed EDA. The IRRB awarded the community a $15 million economic assistance package. And part of that assistance package requires the formation of an economic development authority. And so that's ultimately what spurred the conversation and led us here this evening. On December 19th, the council held a work session to kind of talk about the Economic Development Authority. What would it look like? What would the next steps be? And generally just to get the guidance from the council that yes, please move forward with forming an Economic Development Authority. So a little check-in there just to make sure that everyone knew which way we were rowing the boat. On January 7th, the City Council formally called for that public hearing, and then that public hearing notice was published in the official publication for 2 consecutive weeks, consistent with city statute. And then as you can see here by the orange arrow, February 6th tonight, the City Council is holding the statutorily required public hearing to form an Economic Development Authority. Moving on to the next slide, something to keep in mind here, cities have a few different options when it comes to your economic and community development related powers. The City Council can do certain things. There are housing redevelopment authorities, as I mentioned, and there are economic development authorities. There's actually a 4th authority that's not listed on the slide called a port authority, but not anything that you would have to worry about in the city of Aurora. But the thing to keep in mind is that when you look at some of these statutes and you look at some of the moving parts, it can be a bit confusing because in some situations the powers of the various bodies will overlap. And so what they can do is not always mutually exclusive. And so sometimes if you're wondering like, well, why do we need to have an EDA or versus an HRA, or why can't the City Council just do this? Then I would say we need to turn to the next slide. So when you look here between the EDA and the HRA, there are any number of powers that are outlined in state statute, and if you're curious and want to read through them in greater detail, attachment B to your memorandum actually has it much more detail based on the nature of the entity, its budgeting and accounting controls, the number of commissioners, its powers, etc. That's a much longer document than what's included in the presentation, but the presentation does have some of the kind of the points I think the council and the public would be interested in. As you can see, generally when you look through the various powers, you know, EDAs and HRAs can both contract with other governments, but only EDAs can act as limited partners. That will be especially important when you consider economic development initiatives and especially working with entities, let's say for the sale of land or to partner on a business venture. In those scenarios, the EDA has more powers and authorities that it can use in order to accomplish the economic development goals and programs of the city. Both can own and operate public facilities, carry out studies, and issue bonds subject to the council's approval, but the HRA is much more limited, only really related to things like housing programs, blight remediation, building, housing, things of that nature, whereas the EDA has far broader economic development powers and authorities, so they can do far more for the community generally. And perhaps the most important 2 items on that slide, and probably what really brings us here tonight, is the EDA does have the ability to make loans for economic development purposes, and it can provide venture capital for economic development purposes. So you may recall that there are 2 components, that $15 million economic assistance package. $9 million of it is going to the city of Aurora to support infrastructure improvements, namely street and utilities and grading and land alterations and things like that. And the $6 million is a non-recourse net rents loan that will be used to build the 30,000 square foot spec building that will be on site. It will be the EDA that actually holds that loan and will function on behalf of the city in operating the loan and servicing the debt that's associated with it. So really that's the reason tonight, that particular power, that when the city was chatting with the IRRB, why an EDA would have to be formed. Moving on to the next slide, this is just really for comparison purposes, as you can see, and as I kind of mentioned, when you look through like carrying out federal housing programs, housing rehabilitation loans, commercial rehabilitation loans, down payment assistance, these are all things that are related to housing that HRAs can do, but EDAs cannot do. And so really, if you had some of those programs or thinking about expanding some of those programs, then your existing HRA would be the more appropriate venue. So really, these 2 slides just help understand the juxtaposition and the powers that the different authorities have in order and trying to accomplish either your economic development or community development strategies. But really the thing to keep in mind is that HRAs are focused on housing development, blight prevention and remediation, substandard structures, etc., whereas EDAs are really charged with creating a broad, kind of cohesive economic development program. So moving on, a few things to keep in mind. Both of them would kind of be quasi-independent public corporations. They're political subdivisions of the state of Minnesota. In this situation, they also afford you two other things. One, they do provide the city with an extra layer of liability protection because it is another corporation and you can operate your economic development program through that rather than the city generally. And it does help separate economic development actions from other issues. So it really allows you to drill down and have a public body that focuses just on community and economic development, not necessarily the other things that the city is concerned with its broader regular operations and normal capital projects. So really an EDA would possess statutory powers to accept and administer the loan that the IRRB will plan on providing to it once it's formed. It can assist with any future phases of the industrial park. So right now we're talking about building out an 80-acre industrial park, but really the first phase is the spec building and a road. And then, if I recall correctly, some land preparation for potentially other parts of the industrial park. But you will have future industrial park phases, and what those look like is really yet to be determined, and the EDA is the most robust authority to provide you the maximum amount of flexibility in order to build out the industrial park in a way that's consistent with the vision of the city and the city council. And then it does also allow you to craft other economic development goals. You can run any number of incentive programs through the Economic Development Authority related to, again, any economic development plans or priorities that the council or the community may have. So tonight there's a few things that we have to do, and just to kind of talk about the statutory process, as I mentioned last month, the city published the notice of the public hearing. We're holding the public hearing this evening. And you would, if it be so in order by the council later after the public hearing is closed, you would adopt the EDA enabling resolution, which is attachment C of the memorandum distributed earlier, and I believe was also included in the city council packets. And then right now we have tentatively scheduled the first meeting of the EDA on February 15th. That would be what we would call the organizational meeting. And at that organizational meeting, the EDA would have to approve bylaws, appoint officers, and approve its official seal, which will, if I had to guess, will look a lot like the city's seal. It'll just say Economic Development Authority instead of City of Aurora. So just keep that in mind. And then after that, once you've completed that process, then you have, based on the enabling resolution, all the powers and authorities granted to the EDA under state law. So then you could act on any other items that would be appropriate for the Economic Development Authority. In this case, the most notable item right now would be the $6 million loan from the IRRB. The other thing that you would likely do at that first meeting is you would set a regular schedule of meetings. So you would meet as an EDA and then essentially discuss what is the best time for us to meet regularly. Some EDAs meet monthly, some meet quarterly, some meet as needed. It's really up to the individual community and economic development authority to decide what's appropriate. Sometimes the meeting schedules change as well. So you may be in a particular intense project period and it makes more sense for the EDA to meet on a more regular basis. And then perhaps that tailors off a little bit once those projects are over. So it all depends. It's very flexible. Certainly up to you. It's very much like when the city council needs to meet in a work session or a regular meeting to accomplish business. So really the next steps, if the city council adopts the enabling resolution, you schedule an organizational meeting and then you could act on any items related to the industrial park. And the one thing we have talked about as well, and this is also a recommendation that was included in the financial management plan that was presented to the council last September, is the EDA then would be the most appropriate venue to start considering any economic development goals that the city could have. And it's not uncommon for an EDA to adopt, and they'd have different names, but usually something along the line of what we would call an economic development strategic plan, where you would talk about what things are you interested in from an economic development perspective seeing happen in the community, and what levers might you be willing to pull, let's say creating TIF districts, using tax abatements, providing business subsidies, things like that. Those are all things that can be hashed out in an EDA. And the nice thing is it gives the city the opportunity to create a proactive program, so you, when you are presented with an opportunity, you already have some tools in the toolbox and you're not just responding as developers or certain opportunities present themselves. So, as mentioned, tonight we're recommending you open the public hearing, which has already happened, to accept any public comments from any interested parties. And then if the council were comfortable, you could then close the public hearing, and then at that point in time it would be appropriate, if the council so desired, to adopt the enabling resolution. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the last couple of months of process and some of the powers and authorities of an EDA.
Well, I recognize and respect that a public hearing is primarily to solicit questions and inputs from the public at this point in time. So unless I'm misunderstanding things, I'm hoping that we could proceed to provide that opportunity. But then after we close the hearing in relation to adoption of the resolution, maybe we could pepper Dan with some questions at that time. Is anyone else's understanding differently of the public hearing purpose, council, or would that be an appropriate way to
Yeah, I mean,
manage?
I only see two, looks like potential citizens from Aurora here, so.
Yeah. Well, all
they're,
right, so anticipating we don't have any other staff necessarily to make any presentations, which would be part of our usual agenda. And it just, again, because it's a formal hearing, just at this point would invite anyone who wanted to speak in favor of the proposal with 3 minutes allowed. I note for the record that the chair of the Aurora Housing and Redevelopment Authority is in the audience. I don't know that if she has any questions or anything, but it's obviously going to be a pairing of interests between these two bodies if we go forward with EDA. Seeing no one wishing to speak in favor, opportunity for anyone who might be opposed to the proposal before us. I don't see anyone opposed to it. And again, whether legal counsel or deputy clerk tells me otherwise, I believe that would conclude our business at the public hearing.
Everybody here had an opportunity to speak at the public hearing, as you indicated, and no one's chosen to, so.
Right. So, obviously, this is an important step in any major move of a city to have a public hearing to enable citizen input directly into the process, and we've tried to afford that, but apparently this is such a good suggestion that there's it speaks for itself. So with that, I'll actually, I think I can unilaterally adjourn the public hearing, since we never convened as a council. And if we could then, well, first of all, thanks very much for the materials that you presented. Think of us that. Now, we have two groups that are waiting action by the council, and recognizing this is deviating from the prepared agenda, I wonder if we couldn't proceed down to, let's see, trying to, 17.1 on our agenda, move that up for consideration of the adoption. I'm sorry, I believe I need to reconvene our meeting, which was recessed earlier, and note that the time is 5:51, and so I'm calling our regular meeting back to order, and I'm asking councilors, is there any objection to deviating from the agenda and proceeding immediately to 17.1, which is under the new business section of our distributed and prepared agenda? Any objection? No. All right, John, is that okay with you?
No.
All right.
Yes.
All right. All right, so with that, I'll turn to agenda item 17.1, and there's a prepared resolution in your packet materials there that's been distributed previously. It's proposed resolution 2024-14, an enabling resolution establishing an economic development authority for the City of Aurora under Minnesota statute section 469.090 through 469.108. And I think so we could facilitate any discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the proposed resolution as described.
We don't have it
You don't have that?
Who doesn't have
Counselor Hanson, and it's under 17.1. I can only attest to the fact, somehow I got it. I don't remember you passing it out separately,
that? I
but,
didn't.
No, it came out late this afternoon.
Yes.
all right.
It came out late this afternoon.
All right. Well, there are two possibilities we have. We could pause briefly and let the deputy clerk go downstairs and make copies, or,
If you had in the, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's also in the materials that I distributed to the council, so if you
Excellent,
look in
excellent.
that little memo, it's attachment C.
you know us well.
There
you go.
It's right behind the comparison of the authorities.
All right. Here we go. So it seems to differ only in that the resolution number is
That's it.
missing from
That's
this,
what I
but
did.
it appears substantively to be the same one. So has everyone seen that?
Yeah, that's this one.
All right. And you found it, Counselor Godey?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Which one's
Well,
that?
Counselor Hanson will help you there.
Yep, okay, got it. About 3 in the back. Yep. Oh, wait, what's the number of it?
14.
It would be in the public hearing economic authority creation memo.
I think it's that other.
You have the other memo.
Too many, all the same. Oh, here it is, thank you.
I'd make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-14, enabling a resolution establishing the Economic Development Authority of the City of Aurora.
All right, Counselor Hess has moved adoption of the prepared resolution. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Supported by Counselor Hanson.
Gotta do a roll call.
Yeah, right. First of all, is there
Well,
discussion?
hey, so Lucas told me that I couldn't vote on this because they didn't have my location at the time the meeting was set.
Nope,
So I could
that's-
listen in, but not,
That's different, John. That's different.
Okay.
You're fine.
okay.
All right, yeah. All right, so we have a motion supported on the table. And now I had a question, at least I was curious in my mind to try and emphasize. Essentially, what you're proposing is that we undertake some actions to have a bigger toolbox, right? I mean, we have an HRA established, and the intent is to establish an economic development authority, each of which has access to different powers for development of the community. Is that a correct understanding? So nothing we're doing affects the HRA's existence, and it enables us to have the addition of the Economic Development Authority powers, right?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yes, that's correct. So the formation of the EDA this evening doesn't in any way affect the HRA.
Okay.
In fact, in our conversations with the city administrator, you do have the authority under state law to actually combine the two bodies, but because you have an HRA already, the idea was to have two separate entities. And that is very common. Many communities have a standalone HRA and a standalone EDA, so they can have multiple bodies exercising the different powers.
And the other question I just had in my mind, I think you touched upon it, was with your experience with other communities where the city council becomes the EDA, how much of an additional administrative or time burden does it tend to be on average over a year? Or you said that we could meet as the need arises?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yes, that's correct. So it would depend really, once the EDA is convened, how often they would like to meet. There are any number of examples where an EDA or even HRA will only meet on an as-needed basis when there is occasion to exercise the powers of the authority for a particular activity. I would say most commonly in communities that have kind of robust economic development programs and they're doing a lot of things, they're probably meeting monthly. And then I would say the other kind of plurality meet quarterly. So it's really up to the council. In this situation, If, for example, if you were to decide to undertake like an economic development strategic plan, I would imagine that you would meet monthly for a while as you sort that out, and then perhaps you would graduate to something less frequent once you got through some of the more labor-intensive activities.
I don't want to try to manage all the questions. Are there the other questions that might come to mind, or I have kind of one more just specifically in relation to the West Industrial Park. We obviously own the land now, and we're getting this grant and opportunity for a loan. So the EDA will be the borrower? Is that a fair way to characterize on the loan portion of it, the function that the EDA will perform?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so what will end up happening is the IRRB will basically provide the city with a loan. That loan will be used to construct the spec facility, which I think is currently about 30,000 square feet is the idea. And then to service that loan, the EDA will have a lease with the future tenant. That future tenant will pay rents to the EDA, who will then use those net rents to then pay the loan back to the IRRB.
So the EDA will be the borrower then, right?
Yes.
Since it's the one that's obligated to repay.
Correct.
But
Now
in
the-
addition, will be the landlord essentially also, right?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, that's correct.
All right.
The
I
one
don't know if
point
the rest
I
of you
would-
have those same questions, but I was trying to sort out, this is a new experience for us.
So the city owns the property.
Right.
Who owns the building? In the EDA or the city?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in all likelihood, it would end up being the EDA, but that's something that would have to be sorted out in the future.
Okay.
All right.
That'll be the question, will the IRRB want the EDA to own the land that the building sits upon, which normally is the case, because what good is a building if you don't own the land?
I think for a $15 million package, we can be very accommodating. So, Councilor Hess, any thoughts, Cory? All right.
Just another thing, usually, and Mayor, you worked at the IRRB, is usually they're like a non-recourse type loan, meaning that the city's not on any obligation, it's only derived from the rents that they may get when they do come in to satisfy that loan. The IRRB won't come back at the city of Aurora or its taxpayers for that amount.
So if we're successful, they'll be successful. All right, very good. Councilor McCloskey, anything from Florida?
Nope.
All right. Seeing no further questions or discussion then, we have the motion on the table to adopt Resolution 2024-14. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McClousich,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes. All right, so we unanimously adopt it, and I'm assuming that's all the business we need to direct at this particular issue. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, that's correct. The one thing that is just worth noting that was included in the resolution is that that resolution did appoint the mayor and members of the city council as the EDA Board of Commissioners.
Well, congratulations to all the council members, their new responsibilities. All right, so we've concluded action on that point. Now, since we have been taking some liberties with the actual adopted agenda here, I'd ask your indulgence to see if we couldn't proceed to the appointment of the, it's not actually on here, is it?
No.
Okay, under other business, 12, or 17.12, to proceed to, by motion, approving the recommendations of the screening committee and appointing the firm of Adolph and Peterson as the CMAR for the West Industrial Park project.
I would make a motion to approve AP as our CMR project managers for industrial park building.
All right, is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, supported by Councilor Hanson, moved by Councilor Hess. I think we had a good presentation earlier, and we know both the recommendations of the committee, but for those that might be in the audience, our screening committee came back and recommended the firm of Adolph and Peterson to act as the construction manager at risk for the West Industrial Park project. And Councilor Hess, then you've moved to approve and make that appointment, and Councilor Hanson supported it. Any further discussion? Councilor Kolosich or members of the council in the room? All right, if not, all those in favor will be polled by, will be polled by a roll call.
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
Yes,
Gregor.
Yes. All right, unanimously you've taken that action. And again, representatives from Adolph and Pearson, we look forward to working with you. We appreciate your staying around for that vote. On the other hand, I know you have other pressing business and you'd like to
Just a wife at home, no big deal.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you.
thanks,
Thank you.
Hans.
Thank you.
Thank you. What? Dan is sneaking out. Oh, Dan, okay. Yeah. I guess you're leaving us. All right. Well, thank you for the work you've done and on both elements.
Yes.
I'm sorry we didn't have more time to discuss the franchise issue, but we're certainly grateful for the, actually, it's so much better in PowerPoint personally to be able to see the conveying of the information that you did there and a good walkthrough for that. That was helpful.
Well, I'm glad you appreciated it. I appreciate Luke telling me to do that, so.
Him knowing, yeah.
We will certainly have an opportunity in the future again to talk about the franchise fees. As you know, we are scheduled to update the financial management plan for the city later this year, and then we're also currently working on the wastewater utility rate study. So I think in either of those circumstances, we could certainly revisit the discussion, or of course, if Luke would like, I'm happy to have another meeting with the city council to talk about that.
Yeah,
As a standalone item.
I think there's some priority that, in discussions with Luke, that we've decided we'd like to attribute to it. And we recognize that some of our franchise agreements have either lapsed or are not necessarily as applicable to current circumstances as they should be. So I think as a council, we had to look forward to a discussion in the future, which I hope you'll be able to guide us through.
Of course, yeah, happy to help, but love me some franchise fees.
There you go.
All right, very good.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, unless I'm misperceiving the situation, I think we can now proceed to back to the prepared agenda and returning to agenda item 4, which is the consent agenda, which encompasses a series of agenda items that are believed to probably be non-controversial. They're marked with asterisks in the printed materials, and usually what we do is first solicit the council members to see if there's any consent agenda item that they would like to have pulled out of the consent agenda for further discussion. Seeing no hands rising or comments being made, then entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor Hess.
I'll support it.
Supported by Councilor Godey. Now the matter's on the table. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
yes,
Gregor.
Yes. All right, we'll proceed then. The next item that isn't part of the consent agenda is appearances, public forum. Mr. Zegler, are you planning to address the council?
The only question I got is, a couple months ago, you stated something about you had somebody kind of interested in, like, you know, for this new park or something. I can't remember what you said. You said maybe you would announce it at the beginning of the year. Remember that? It was about November, I think it was.
Well, your memory is very good. My appropriateness of the comment probably wasn't equally appropriate. What I found out was the firm that I was aware of was looking for about a 6,000 square foot business property, and I've been informed since then that at least in the 30,000 square foot spec building that's being planned, they are envisioning a single tenant for that rather than any subdivision of it into smaller components. So that doesn't mean that that other project, if it becomes more viable or real, then that couldn't be accommodated within the West Industrial Park plat. But that's not the tenant for which both the IRRB and the city are concentrating their efforts. Yeah.
Then one more. What about, it's the old thing, the Union Hall? Now, what's going on with that? You know, I mean,
Councilor Godey's on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Maybe you could answer that.
We had another meeting with the contractor about insulating and putting in a ceiling, but we're still not quite free and clear with all the paperwork. The last meeting from the previous people that had the agreement for the grocery store. So we're still a little bit away from getting the building back 100%, but we're working on it. But
I don't think they've turned anybody down yet.
no.
So.
no, the thing is, you know, how much does it cost? The city to heat it every year.
Well,
It's been going on for how long?
the city isn't paying to heat it. It's the HRA.
No. Well,
Still
But
part of the
it-
city.
yeah.
Yeah.
Different pocket.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no one would be happier to see someone come and get that building than I
Yes,
would.
yeah.
Yep.
Right.
All right, thank you for those comments anyway. For the audience out there, it was a good opportunity for Councilor Godey to bring us up to date on some of those matters. Let's see, then, see no other public present, no one's online, right, Deputy Clerk? No. All right, then we could proceed to, normally we proceed to staff reports from members. I believe we gave that opportunity in the preceding item number 11.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have any additional staff reports. Those were part of the 5 o'clock agenda setting meeting. And having adopted the intervening agenda items, we moved to 14, which is reports from our counselors. And let's see, I think Councilor Hanson is probably the junior member, right? So if you, well, it could be either, you two can fight over it, but I'll call on Councilor Hanson for his report.
I have nothing.
Nothing. All right, Councilor Hanson has nothing. Councilor McCloskey from Florida, any comments or updates to make other than on the beautiful weather down there?
Well, I'll be honest, the weather's been terrible. A lot of rain and a lot of clouds. So no, I have nothing else.
All right, Councilor Godey?
Well, I attended my first Rams meeting as a board member, and we had Larry Sutherland from Masabi Metallics give a little talk on where they're at with that project. It was really quite interesting. He gave a history of his work throughout the years in the steel industry and taconite plants. Then he talked about the leases they're trying to acquire. They've got them in the works for permitting to possibly add land that they can use for ore. But the thing I found that was the most interesting, it's called green steel at this project. it's kind of a flow where everything never really gets cooled down. It goes from the start, moves through the process to a finished product at the end. By being green steel, what they mean is 2 tons of CO2 is produced, making a typical ton of steel. With this green process, it's 0.3 tons of CO2. So it is something that looks like the way of the future. You know, you use so much energy letting stuff cool down and reheating it, and it really sounds like a good deal. And he said that they believe all the financial support they need to complete the project.
So they're gonna do that?
What's
They're
that?
actually, that green steel,
Yeah,
they're actually making provisions to do it.
right, they're working on it. He gave a lot of talk, but I'm just hitting the highlights, but they've done a real bang-up job, he said, keeping all the motors preserved and that were already on the site from the past people that owned it. That's about it for that, but planning and zoning, we had quite a bit of talk at the last meeting about work being done in the city with no permits. The reason for a permit is to protect your neighbors and yourself, so you don't put something up that is breaking the rules. You know, it's just being fair to your neighbors to follow the rules for setbacks and maybe not blocking the vision of people driving through town. You know, there's limits on heights of fences and stuff. Let's see, I talked about HRA.
Did the commission have any suggestions of steps that could be taken to better enforce the ordinances?
Well, we've talked about it, but we're not quite sure what we can do. But it seems like quite a few projects that are being done without permits. And it's $20 for a permit to protect you and your neighbors. You know, it's not a large fee. The fire department, the 5 new members, they're starting their training. It's a lot of classes, and they're fixing them up with what existing gear we have that will fit them, and buying a few pieces that were short. And at the last business meeting, they read the administration policies and they're updating those. So they do a bang-up job. I've got a soft spot for the fire department. So the East Range Public Safety Board, the beginning of the year there was changes. Norma Jean is no longer on it. Rick is on it, and Bob is the alternate. And I guess the elephant in the room is trying to get ready to let Chief Suler retire. It's a big decision. So that's all I have for my committees.
Sounds like you've been quite active, Counselor. All right, so that concludes your report?
Yes.
All right, Counselor Hess.
I don't have too much, other than we did our meeting on the CMAR, which was very interesting. I mean, we had 4 proposals, we interviewed 3 and recommended the one we just hired, that they stood out way above everybody else. I mean, it was, and they want to be part of the community, and I think that meant a lot to all of us too. Other than that, doing the city garage had a major breakdown on a plow, but we got that back going again. Good thing we got a small machine shop outside of town. I mean, people forget about these little businesses that are around, but it saves us lots of money in the end when we go to get something fixed. So that's about all I have.
Thank you, Counselor. Let's see, realizing we have an audience, since this is being taped, I think it's appropriate to mention that all of us assembled on February 1st at a noticed meeting, and we were joined by the town of White, full board, and then the East Range Water Board. So it was a collective meeting of the three bodies, and at that meeting, actions were taken to adopt. Each body adopted a water service rate increase schedule for rates changes that would be made between 2025 and 2029. And with the, each of those resolutions passed from the council in the town, and that then provided the ability for the bodies to award, well, actually the water board, to award the contracts for the construction of the long-planned East Range joint water project to the the lowest bidder for each of the three components of that project. The total cost of which is estimated to be $33 million when you include in construction management, contingencies, and other factors such as that. So the other action then that was taken, essentially having created that obligation, the team on the water project has received firm assurances that having taken those actions to indicate a revenue stream sufficient to support it, that the public facilities authorities, one of their programs, would be willing to lend $12 million on a 30-year low-interest basis to the project to do what we described as closing the gap between our previously committed funding sources, including the $5 million loan which the communities of Town of White and Aurora had planned for, and getting a total $12 million loan, which would then be drawn upon as late as possible in the process, but also once it did start, that there'd be sort of a ramping up then of the repayment or servicing of that loan commensurate with how the project's going. Now, it was frightening, I think, to all of us to take on that kind of an obligation. And the factors behind it, I think, that moved everyone to feel confident in doing that was the fact we haven't stopped fundraising from outside sources to help finance that project. In fact, as we're meeting here, or at least today, there was a delegation of our local representative Liz Lillard, our city lobbyist, our city administrator Luke, and other participants who visited the senators' offices, and they were trying to arrange to meet also with Representative Stauber to work on possibilities for an Army Corps of Engineer $4 million grant, not a loan, grant, that would then be able to reduce that $12 million loan. And then the team is also pursuing a number of other options to try to reduce the principal of that loan back down to the original $5 million that the communities had targeted, and which was the subject of a meeting we had last summer, at which we projected the rates necessary to sustain the indebtedness would be something like $49 per month. So just for way of background, we'll try to get more public information out on that. But the good news is this project that has been in the wings for a decade or more finally is on tap, and hopefully we'll get it completed in time before the water treatment plant and the water pumping station on St. James give way. So we did have a series, by the way, in the East Range Times, if those of it might not have read it, that explained why we took the actions to raise water rates and for what purposes back in December, I think. They went into effect on January 1st, where everyone's seen that on their bill. We had a Rams annual dinner that was, again, reassuring and impressive, primarily for the fact, having moved around the state myself, and by comments and anecdotes from other people, it's truly a unique gathering of so many public entities to speak with one voice throughout our whole region. And it carries a great deal of credibility and impact downstate in the legislature, and we're glad Councilor Godey's on board there to help at least voice our interests and bring back some news on the efforts that RAMS is making on that. Like the RAMS group, the mayor's meeting that I attended is targeting EMS service costs and identifying it as both a regional problem but also a statewide problem, and got some sort of legislative initiative briefings on steps that group will take. The East Range Joint Powers Board is preparing for some new business loan program, and generally going about a number of housing initiatives and matters there that will be probably detailed a little more at the next meeting. So the Celebrate Aurora is planning a robust July 3rd celebration. They've already secured the fireworks provider and a number of the entertainment options. So to finance that in part, there's going to be a fundraiser at the Legion on April 27th. And I believe they're also encouraging the fun spiel. Deputy Clerk, you're on Celebrate Aurora. Is
I
that
think unofficially.
unofficially
Yes, I
promoting
think
that,
unofficially
which is
we're
an
promoting.
event going on at the Curling Club on February 24th, which anyone's welcome to try their luck at curling there. And then just one last comment, Mayor Wycombe in our neighboring community of Biwabik has just retired from 40 years with the Arrowhead Public Library System, and we wish him well in retirement and welcome his additional time now he can spend on mayoral duties. So that's the mayor's report.
Mayor, I have one question. Have you heard anything from White Lakes about coming to getting the water?
Yeah, well, yes, we, Hoyt
I
Lakes,
just heard rumors.
yeah, Hoyt Lakes is in the midst of a capital improvement and including their utility facilities study that Bolton and Make engineering firm is preparing some documentation on, and I guess as far as I know, and I'm not necessarily the most informed person, there should be a report back on that probably late winter or early spring.
Correct.
Correct?
We're just getting going, but we should have that answer probably end of March.
All right. So the good news in relation to that is that we've built into the joint East Range Water Project sufficient capacity to hopefully be able to service their needs if they choose to join into that system. And there will actually be a real project into which they could join because of the actions that we took. So, all right, then returning back to our agenda, agenda item 16 is old business. Each of these pertains to various policies and procedures. We tabled it at the last meeting, and the city administrator's recommendation is that we take action to table all 4 items once again, bringing them up at the meeting in the middle of the month instead.
I'll make the motion, table all items under old business.
It's been moved by Councilor Hess,
I'll support it.
supported by Councilor Godey. Whoops, Councilor McCloskey.
Yeah.
We should give you a chance here, Councilor McCloskey.
Yeah, I'll support that.
Supports that, okay. All right, so it's been moved and supported. Any further questions or concerns on that? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
McClousich,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes. All right, so the old business items are tabled, hopefully to come up at the next meeting. Moving on to the agenda item 17, new business. We've already taken care of agenda item 17.1, adopting the Economic Development Authority and making appointments of board members there. I think 17.1 and 17.2, since that was all in one motion. On 17.3 on franchise fees, I don't know that we have any actions necessarily to take at this time.
I would just, table it.
All right. Yeah, all right, yeah, we did have the presentation during our prior work session, but is there a motion then to table the franchise fees issue for further consideration at a later time?
I move we table.
Okay,
franchise
moved by
fees.
Counselor Hanson,
I'll support.
supported by Counselor Godey. Seeing no out-of-state or present concerns or objections about that, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
Yes,
Greiger.
Yes. All right, so that matter is also tabled, probably not for consideration at the next meeting, but I know that staff, Luke and Lindsay, have been very aggressive in moving forward on that issue, so I'm sure it'll come back to us. 17.4 is the library board member approval. I think we're reappointing Kim Zinski. We took action on that, I think, too late in the year or something, but we did have that matter on our agenda before, right, at one time. But in any event, the issues that are before us is the appointment of Kim Zinski to the library board for a term that would end at the end of this calendar year. And Counselor Hanson, correct?
Mary Lockwood too.
Oh, it was Mary's?
Yeah. there's
Oh,
three.
Mary Lockwood,
For
okay.
3 years.
Yeah, hers would be 3 years. Okay, so those two appointments, I suspect, could be done in one motion. Counselor Hanson,
I move we approve the new board, the library board.
all right. Support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Hess. Let's see, any further discussion? So we'll be dealing with those two appointments in one motion. Seeing no discussion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
yes,
Greiger.
Yes. All right, that motion passes, and I believe that's a full complement, right, for the library board, or is there still a
I
vacancy?
think there still is one vacancy.
Still one vacancy, all right. Moving on to agenda item 17.5, City Engineering Services Agreement. It's a quite extended one, and I believe you should each have received a fee schedule addendum to that. Did everybody get that today or not? This afternoon?
Also via email
Yes.
very late in the afternoon, so.
All
But
right.
Josh can
I
talk
did
about
get
it.
Okay, Councilman McCloskey got it, but it was kind of a late item there. Let's see, I had spoken briefly with the city attorney beforehand, and I read through it, and by and large, I understand the terms are fairly conventional, but city attorney, do you want to make some comments on
I didn't get a
concerns?
chance to talk to Luke on it. I was gonna do it today, but apparently he's not here. He's in Washington DC, so I just asked to table it for 2 weeks, and then I'll talk to Luke, and we'll be on the 20th of February, is that the next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would just add the context, this was something from our legal counsel, just to have clarity on responsibilities of each party. They like to have these in place, and so with the new year, I thought it was just a good time to get that in front of the council. I'm not an attorney, but the way I read it, I think it's I mean, the city can cancel the, agreement at any time, the way it
Yeah.
reads.
I think there were just, some concerns as a lawyer that
Yeah,
for liability
Sure.
and dispute resolutions that the city attorney in particular wanted to look at.
And I didn't have the fee schedules attached to mine, so I wanted to go over that with Luke too.
And so the schedule I sent Lindsay is just our standard fee schedule. In the agreement, it still states the discounted
This
rate.
is a reminder that the library
So the original agreement included 10 hours of discounted engineering a month. I think it's $100 an hour. That's in here. I mean, that supersedes our standard fee schedule.
Right. Okay.
Certainly not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes on this. So,
All right, I'll make
table
a,
it till the 20th. I'll make the motion to table till,
Councilor Hess made the motion to table it to the 20th.
I'll support it.
Councilor Godey supports. Further discussion? on that. I do think it's an important agreement, and I hope we'll all get a chance to dive into it more thoroughly in that interim time there. So seeing no further discussion on the motion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
Yes,
Gregor.
Yes. All right, so that matter is tabled for coming back to us sooner then. Let's see, the 17.6, the next agenda item, we have a proposed resolution 2024-11 for a property purchased. Did you actually bring the map with or not?
I didn't, but I pulled it up on my computer.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
we're grateful for your
Thank you.
knowledge on that. In any event, we have the,
It's the one right next to the Blue Cross, or the old Blue Cross Blue Shield building, so, to the west. of
Correct,
it.
it connects to the industrial park property. Discussions with Luke, the costs, there is some savings realized purchasing it, because I think we're gonna be able to run the utilities up the east side of the property, which is gonna save having to go out to the county right away, get a permit from the county, maintain utilities in the counties right away, and it just makes things a lot cleaner for utilities going to the industrial park, and there is some savings there. I mean, we save a manhole or two on the sanitary sewer, that's probably 10 grand a manhole, so.
and am I correct in understanding that even though there's an acquisition price of, what is it, 30 or 35? 35,000, that may very well be a reimbursable cost associated with the West Industrial Park development funding?
Potentially, I would let Luke confirm that, but that's my understanding as well,
Okay.
so.
Seemed, and I know that Blue.
not only that, it's gonna square up our parcel over there,
Yes.
because it's 6.5 acres, so it's a good investment, I think, so.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-11, purchase of the parcel.
Councilor Hess has made a motion to adopt the proposed resolution. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Supported by Councilor Hanson. Any further discussion on that sort of strategic move? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
yes,
Gregor.
Yes. All right. All sorts of development-related issues going on here. Moving to 17.7, IRRB funds for the water project. This is authorizing the request for the second $1 million of funds, which had been verbally pledged, but which now is being positioned by the Department of Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation for presentation to the IRRB board at its next meeting, which should optimistically be at the later part of this month, but in any event, next month. And that should then enable that sort of counted upon to be assured additional funding and bring the total IRRB funding package for the project to $2 million. So I guess I'm involved enough in this whole project. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed resolution 2024-12. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Let's see, Council Godey beats. Get the name in the minutes with us. All right, so it's been supported by Councilor Godey. Councilor McLeod, or anybody else have any comments or concerns on making application for those funds? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
yes,
McLeod,
yes,
Gregor.
Yes. All right, the proposed resolution is adopted. Moving on to 17.8, resolution 2024-13 is proposed to open an additional bank account at Northern States Bank, where the city has most of its other funds and accounts. I can just kind of add, we didn't have a lot of packet materials here, but I spoke with Kimberly and Luke about this previously, and because the actions we took in December included specifically a component, in the case of water rates, $7 per month per customer, and in the case of the wastewater, $3 per month, the proceeds of which were intended to be set aside for capital improvements or equipment failures. And from both an accounting standpoint and a transparency standpoint with our citizens, the feeling was, and Kimberly in particular from an accountant's standpoint, suggested that we establish two new accounts at the Northern State Bank pursuant to the authorization of this proposed resolution. Now, have I misstated that in any way, Deputy
No,
Clerk?
you'd have a sewer account and a water account,
Yeah.
you'd have two, yes.
Right, yeah.
That's the way it should be.
And then that further emphasizes this is being reserved for special purposes, yeah. So, I believe we have the motion. No, we don't have the motion.
I'll
Is
make
it
a motion to adopt resolution 2024-13.
moved by Councilor Hess, is there support?
Support it.
No,
We were looking to Florida, but that's okay. So
No,
Councilor.
I can support that.
Okay. Councilor McClassic supports. And any further discussion on the proposal there, proposed motion? All right, if not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McClousich,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes. Moving next to agenda item 17.9, the Central Avenue Services Agreement. This is, you could probably speak to this,
Yeah.
Josh.
So during the 5 o'clock meeting, I made mention that we received $60,000 for pavement improvements on Central Avenue. So this is just scope and feed to do preparations of plans and specifications to get that built.
So would this come out of the 60,000, or is this 60,000 to get, or 30,000 to get the 60,000?
So the 60 requires a 60 match, it's a 1-to-1 match, and then this would be an addition to put that together. So I don't think professional services are reimbursable through CDBG, but I think they count as a match or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not expecting our overall contract to exceed the competitive bidding requirement, which is $175,000. You have to seek public bids. We should be able to do direct quote here, which is going to simplify the overall contracting process, ultimately saving the city money. You know, it's simple pavement repair, so it's pretty straightforward. Because with the low cost, we can kind of pick who we want to work with within reason. They still have to provide low quotes, but we don't have to open it up to everyone. So, but this is just split out. Task 1 to put the plans together, and then task 2 is construction administration. So, making sure they build it, you know, how we want, just like Pine Grove Park.
So we have a one-page explanation in the packet there. And I think it'd be appropriate to entertain a motion. It doesn't need to be by resolution, a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposal of services for Central Avenue pavement repair.
been moved by Councilor Hess,
I'll support it.
supported by Councilor Godey. Any further discussion on?
I'll ask a question. Josh, you mentioned here a couple months ago, I think that maybe St. Louis County would maybe help out with that because that's gonna be kind of a detour.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find out anything or?
So we reached out to the county about what their anticipated detour is, and they basically didn't have much of a response. They haven't got that far into the project development process to give us much substance to talk about. So, talking with Luke, I do think there's opportunity to get them to contribute some sort of pavement repair. You know, if that becomes the official detour, it's obviously going to damage the road. You know, I say that in quotes. It's you know, it's not going to wreck it, but it does obviously use some of the useful life. And so if they're able to do a chip seal or something to add some life, well then if they take away life, it's not the end of the world. So the county just sent out, so they're putting together a project management team, and so Luke and myself are a part of that. What that is the county, you know, they have all the stakeholders get together and discuss the project, so they're just getting going. I think the first meeting is end of February, so should have more to report in the next council meeting on what their project development process looks like.
So this is a proactive move to
Yes.
try to create a better detour road surface.
Yep,
To
exactly.
kind of work hand in glove with the broader project on Third Avenue and Main Street, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and I don't think there's a scenario where the county pays to fix our cracks, right? They wanna provide the life that they're taking if that becomes the detour, right? So.
Very good. So, let's see, I believe there's a motion with support on the table. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes, that passes unanimously. Moving to agenda item 1710, the liability coverage waiver form. Our city attorney could probably comment on that. Many of us have been part of deliberations like this from our other public bodies. Counselor?
Our recommendation is, does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability. It's $500,000, and my recollection, the last 30-some years, I can't even recall a claim against the city anywhere close to that, so.
You're gonna jinx it.
So the motion would be that we do not waive the immunity, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion to not waive them.
Moved by Counselor Hess, support?
Support it.
I'll support that.
That's right, there's a time lag.
Yes,
Why not?
we have to allow
Yeah.
a 5-second gap or something on that, but so that Councilor McLeod can get his name in the minutes there. We'll recognize him as having supported the motion based on the recommendation and the proposed action here. Are we prepared then to vote, I assume? All right, so could we have a roll call vote, please?
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes,
McLeod,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes. All right, that's unanimously adopted. 1711, I talked briefly with the deputy clerk, and I don't think we've received any materials in relation to that, no?
Yeah, no, to comply with the open meeting law, I had to put it on there, but I haven't received anything else, so no action at this time.
All right. I don't know that we have to so much table it until we have something live to
Correct.
deal with. So unless somebody has any objections, we'll just cross that out. We, under other matters, earlier, for anybody that might be watching, adopted Adolph Peterson as our construction manager at risk for the firm for the West Industrial Park project, and that we completed that action. Any other matter that I'm missing? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
It's moved by Councilor Cody. Is there support?
I'll support that. I'm gonna get kicked out of here pretty quickly.
Yeah, we were worried about you getting locked in, yeah. All right, so Councilor McLeod has supported. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please indicate to the deputy clerk the same.
Godey,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Hess,
yes.
McLeod,
Yes.
Gregor.
Yes, we stand adjourned, and our next meeting will be on February 20th unless a special meeting is called. So, enjoy the warm weather.